Welcome to Covenant of Justice. I'm attorney Isaiah Jerez, and every other week we sit down with remarkable individuals of Southern Nevada who make this such a wonderful place to live. Together, we explore a wide range of topics that matter to the people of Las Vegas and beyond, offering a glimpse behind the glamour of the Strip to showcase the real stories, experiences, and voices that shape our community. Welcome to Covenant of Justice. Today we have with us Councilwoman Olivia Diaz from Ward 3 in Las Vegas. Councilwoman Diaz, thank you so much for coming in. We've worked with you before, specifically with Las Posadas in Las Vegas during the Christmas season last year. And that was an amazing event. We're so grateful to have been a part of that. I think of all the events that I did last year, that was my favorite. Giving away those bicycles to the kids and just seeing their smiles on their faces.
I want to thank you for having an interest to come out and support our community. We know that times are hard. I come from a big extended family, one income. You know, my dad was a casino porter at Caesar's Palace, mom stay-at-home mom, child rearing 6 kids. And so I understand the complexities of the times we are living, where I think about my parents and when I was raised, and I'm like, how would they make it in today's world with things continually rising, but wages not so much. And so your contribution and ensuring that we brought smiles and bikes to our youth was priceless. It truly was when we raffled them and the children came and selected the bike they wanted to take home with them was truly one of those memorable things. And that's kind of what Christmas is about. It's more about seeing the joy that we bring to others versus just amassing things for ourselves, you know?
Yeah, one of the things that we had raffled off was a $250 gift card to a grocery store. And the lady that won it, she came in and she was so happy. And she's like, I was just waiting, I was hoping and waiting. And it feels good, right? To help them out in that time when they need it. But you brought something up. So your dad worked and your mom stayed home with the 6 kids. Like that's a lifestyle choice. I mean, your mom could have gone out and worked, but instead she chose to stay home with
my
the kids.
Dad wanted her to be the person to take care of the home, but also at the end wanted her to go into the workforce. And my mom was like, I already have a full-time job and it's making sure that I'm taking care of you and I'm taking care of my kids and my household. And she's like, I can't do 2 things well. And I applaud her for her wisdom, because it is very hard to be a working mom and to be able to like keep everything up to par. And we're talking about the standards of, you know, of the husbands, not the modern ones, but my dad's more old school, right? And they expect that the house is clean, you know, everything is just squeaky clean and sparkling and everything's in its place, and then that the meals are being cooked and that the 3 meals are being placed on the table. And you know, for someone who works, that's really hard. I give my mom a lot of credit for, she still continues to carry out that work today. She's like dad's primary caretaker, and then there's 2 of my siblings that still live at home, and so she is still doing that function of making sure that the house is well taken care of and that people are you know, nourished and have everything at their disposal that they need to lead their best productive lives in their workforce areas. For the 2 siblings that I have that work, my dad's been retired several years now, but you know, we age, and then with that comes health complications and caretaking too. So it's part and parcel of the course of, you know, being a wife and being part of the family. And but she is someone that has always been a role model to me, because I'm like, I have 1 child and I help co-raise 2 stepsons. And I've always wondered, how did she keep her sanity with 6 of us in the house and continually going through, because 5 of us, the first 5 of us were female, and then the last one was the boy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoo, that was a lot of hormones in the household at once. So, but she did great. I think we turned out pretty decent.
Yeah, and go back to applaud her, right? Even though it's kind of the old school tradition, it means a lot, right? Having the mom in the home, having the home well organized, and disciplining the children, right? Having a mom there to raise someone who's going to be successful, and then use that success to serve the community as well. What a great example.
Absolutely. And my parents come from 2 very small towns that are neighboring towns in Durango, Mexico. And I think that sense of community, they've kind of imparted it. Sometimes you come to Las Vegas and we all come from different places and spaces, and sometimes it's hard to feel that sense of community and belonging when you're newly arrived here. But I learned it from going back to vacations to their motherland and the towns that they were from, and how people, if someone passes, everyone's at the wake. Everyone's trying to provide assistance and support and help. People are bringing meals, coffee, cookies to the funeral just to support those that are going through their loss. And the same thing, if a big party, a quinceañera or a wedding is happening, the whole town goes to that, right? And so it's really awesome. And I think that you also see the, if you're down on your luck and you don't have much, I'm going to provide for you here. But then when I am going through a similar situation, I have the assurance that you're going to come back and do what you can at that moment for me. And it's really cool to see that, because I think that growing up here very isolated, sometimes in apartment complexes where we don't know who we're living near, or it just was really cool to see that sense of going above and beyond for your neighbors and your community. And I think that is in my DNA, I think, and what makes me want to strive to be a good public servant.
Yeah, and that example with the event with Las Posadas, right? Bringing the community together, right? Supporting us, supporting the youth as well, specifically, right, in that time. What is it that, was it that sense of community that you wanted to share with everybody? Is that what led you into becoming a councilwoman?
It has to be, because I never had charted this course for myself. I think that my mom did a great job raising me to believe in myself, and that if I stayed the course and I educated myself and I, worked hard at things, that I would be able to then accomplish everything that I set myself out to do. And I think that confidence and that ability to believe in yourself is what gives you the opportunity when the opportunity sometimes knocks on your door. Sometimes you're not looking for it, but it comes to you. And so this public service entry, initially I was a public education. I was an elementary school teacher since 2002. While I was doing that, we were going through the first economic crisis in 06, 07, 08. And then we started to see lots of cuts to education, and our salaries basically being frozen. We're kind of going back into some of that, as we're hearing right now currently that the Clark County School District is going through some budget cuts and facing some shortfalls. It brings memories to those times, and sometimes it's interesting how things are very circular and come and go. But at that time I was in the classroom still teaching kids, and basically it was children like me in a very urban elementary school. And I loved that I was able to be a bridge between myself, the school, and families that were very much like mine. First generation immigrants coming here looking for a better opportunity, wanting their children to take advantage of the access to an education, and a world-class education at that. And so after I was teaching for a few years, someone came and said, "Hey, do you still live in this area?" And I said, "Yes, I still live in this area." And they said, "Well, there's going to be a vacancy in the state assembly, and I think you would make a great state legislator. Why don't you think about running for this office?" And then they're like, "Talk it over with your family, see what the consensus is." And my stepsons, my husband, my parents, my siblings, they're all like, "Go for it." And I didn't know how crazy that was.
I know. I was
just jump into it and run for office and knock on doors and get the support, put your name on a ballot, learn all about, what a campaign means, and talking to folks. But it's, I think, part of even being an educator at the core. It's going out there, having people exercise their right to vote. It's so important that we do our diligence and our homework on who the leaders we are electing and entrusting in very powerful positions to make decisions on behalf of us is. And sometimes we, don't acknowledge how much power is in our vote, and how we should guard it and exercise it to elect our leaders so that they're making the best decisions by all of us. But two, once you get there, you're like, whoa, I've never dreamed of what this sausage making process, because you being an attorney, you understand that the law on the books has a lot of say in how you navigate your cases and what you can and can't do for your clients. And so then I ran in 2010 for the first time for the state legislature. I got elected, thankfully, and I served 8 years in the state legislature. And I went up pregnant. So
with your first child
son,
when you went up there.
My son was born a couple of weeks into the first legislative session that I served, and he's about to be 15. So time has flown from that time. But everybody's like, you're going to have a baby on top of legislating? And I'm like, we got this. Latino families are supportive. I just needed to figure out who was available to come. And
go all the way up to Reno.
Go to Carson City,
City,
right? Because I ended up delivering in Carson Tahoe Hospital and took 2 weeks off. Didn't have a C-section, thankfully. He was born via, vaginal birth, and then there he was. And 2 weeks back, after 2 weeks of taking some time with bonding and being with family, I resumed my duties that I got elected to do. And so
that is amazing. Just 2 weeks off and you were back at working.
And everybody kept saying, it don't look like you had a baby.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. It must be, my mom went up and helped for a little bit. And then I had my brother and sister-in-law come and be there. And I would rush home. And everybody was telling me, don't worry so much about the beginning of the infancy, because all they do is sleep and eat and poop.
and it's easy to miss on the pooping part.
So I would run home. I'm like, I have a break. Let me run home. I was 5 minutes from the building. And he was sleeping. And they were like, we just fed him and he fell asleep. And we just fed him and he fell asleep. And I was like, this isn't fair. Every time mom has time, he's sleeping. But it was good. And then after serving that amount of time at the state and being one of the first 4 Latinas ever to walk the halls of the legislature, in 2010 was the first time Carson City ever, in 2011 for that session was the first time Latinas had ever been part of the lawmaking process for the state of Nevada. It started to wear on me going and leaving my son every session because the first 2 he came up with me, obviously little infant, 2-year-old, still brought him up. But the last 2, I just left him here because he already had his pre-K, teachers, classmates, and then he was in kindergarten, and it's just harder. And so my husband kind of, with support from other family members, was able to keep the fort down here. But it's very complicated. It truly does take the heart of a server or a servant to leave your family behind, to do the people's work and work on laws every legislative session, which happens every odd number year. So then I was running for my 5th election cycle. I had just clinched re-election for the 5th time when the council person whose seat I'm currently in announced officially he wasn't going to seek re-election. And so I was like, that means I could work at a local level and turn things faster, because I've been canvassing and walking my area, and part of it is in the city of Las Vegas that I represent currently. And I was like, ooh, this would be way better. I'd stay home 100%. I'd be able to see my child and my husband. There would be no interruptions to family. And I think I could bring a lot of positive change and give our community a voice on the council. And so in 2019, I decided to run for this seat. And I prevailed a 7-way primary. So I had, there was a total of 7 candidates on that ballot. The females were the ones who advanced, and then I was able to pull it off in the general. And so been in the seat now 6.5 years. It's been like a dream. It's just, this pace is so fast, so different from the legislator in the sense that it has become my full-time job. A lot of people think that we only show up for the meetings, but the reality is there's a lot of work entailed if we want to see the needle moving in a positive direction for our communities, if we want to see projects come through to fruition. From the time you think of something to the time it's executed, it takes a good 3 to 4 years of planning and allocating funds and making it a reality. So when people see the cones in the roadway,
Oh.
it didn't happen because someone schemed it months that the cones landed. It's actually like it went through a design process. It went through seeking the funds in the capital improvement budget, and then after it got blessed with the budget, then it was actually finding the contractor, and then the contractor takes about 1.5 to 2 years to execute the work. So change doesn't happen overnight, but if we start charting it, we can start seeing those investments in our community. And for my ward, a lot of people just felt like we were never at the top of mind, that our community wasn't really at the center of the work. And I think that I wanted to come on the council and change some of those perceptions, or at least if that was happening, at least change the way that we were doing business to serve the community.
Yeah, because in your community, there's a lot of people that do a lot of the work in town, right?
Yeah.
They're out there, they're doing the hard work at the casinos, or the hard work in the construction crews, right, as well. And so they're providing to build this city as well, and for the city to come back, to have someone there to fight for them to come back and say, okay, remember us, right? Remember that we need some development over here as well.
And sometimes the city needs to be reminded there's people from all walks of life, and we come from so many different countries. I mean, Las Vegas is so diverse. So very diverse. I mean, if you look at our school district, there's over 100 languages that are spoken by English language learners, right? Spanish is just one of the top languages that is spoken here. But it's just we have to sometimes shift our perspective and acknowledge that there may be a lack of and a gap of information that people don't know. People don't know that we have ordinances that tell people what they can and can't do with their property, and that if they want to do additions in their home, they have to come and consult us and figure out if it triggers them having to get a permit to do the work. And then inspections are involved. The same with the height of a fence, the addition of a carport or a porch. Like, all of those things require vetting and planning and coming to the city. And a lot of people don't. They just think, I can just do this change to my house, then I'm going to be fine. And then the complaint comes because they didn't go through the process, and the neighbor reported them, and now it lands in our lap, and now we have to go figure out, what do we do with this carport or porch or addition or casita that they built in the back of their home. And it's so very important that people consult with their municipality. So whether they live in Henderson, Clark County, Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, that they really do their diligence and their research on the front end, so that they don't end up so frustrated and annoyed and sometimes having to dismantle what they built because it wasn't to code, or it's hard to inspect post it already being erected. So
yeah, and culturally, right? My dad, he always reminds me when he was in Colombia, when they had when the family grew, they just built on top of the house, right? That's what they just did, and so it was a matter of they just do.
You didn't have to go to the city government and the municipality out there and say, hey, will you bless this addition? But in the States, it's very different. And that's one of the things that I think I've been able just, as a council member, to raise awareness. Like, people aren't violating the code because they want to. They just are unaware that there is a code to follow and that there is a process. And so we've tried to make some inroads by which we help people, at least bring them along that process and get things corrected or cured.
Yeah, and same thing with the street vendors out there, right? Like, the focus is we want to make sure that we're not spreading diseases and there's health. But yeah, I mean, there's this religious leader that spoke in our church on Sunday, and he was talking about when he was in Mexico, right? That was what he did. Like, he went and washed windows or sold whatever he had in the streets, and that's what he had to do to get by. But up here, right, there's a little bit more concern, right? We're worried about spreading diseases, and so unfortunately, right, there's certain permitting process that they have to go through to make sure that they can.
The health district is an entity that is charged with the task to ensure that, the food quality that we're receiving, whether by restaurant or food truck, is not going to make us sick. And Vegas is a world-class destination, so there's also a brand to protect as a city. What you want your tourists to feel and your visitors, that when they're here, regardless of where they're going to eat, that they're not going to get sick, right? Because how many times have we traveled abroad and we have unfortunate stomach woes and
Yeah.
battles, and kind of like your trip is for naught, because then you're sick and not feeling 100%. So definitely want to ensure that everyone who comes here and is eating and consuming what is being sold is not going to have to go through painful
Yeah.
situations
And I didn't
uncomfortable
I really didn't
situations.
realize that, Brandon. Still, I graduated from law school and I'm working for the court, and there was a case that came before us, and this guy was getting convicted of a felony because he was selling water on the strip. Not just water bottles, just for selling water bottles on the strip, but he had been arrested for it multiple times, and to the point where the court said, okay, like, you can't do this anymore. But for selling water on the strip, right? He was now,
Wow.
gonna
That's
carry a
little
felony.
harsh, but
Yeah.
I think obviously it comes to the point of when you've been told several times that you can't do something and you're still doing it. I think that's where it just kind of compounds itself and it gets escalated. I don't think to anyone you mention, hey, well, for selling water on the street, someone should deserve a felony. I'm not on board with that, but when you're being warned to not do it, but you're still not following the rules and the order, then that's where it gets complicated fast. And
No,
it's unfortunate that he didn't heed the instructions, because I'm sure he was making a pretty penny out there.
Yeah, it's hot,
strip.
right? Yeah, it's hot, without a doubt. So, and I like your stories. It's very inspiring, right? Coming from your family coming from Durango and coming up here and trying to spread that community and doing what you can to help your district in Las Vegas. I was speaking to a young lady the other day who had some interest in politics, and she just threw up her hands and she says, I'm done. I'm not going to continue that path because of so much that goes on when you're running for office, right? And she says she just couldn't handle it. How would you advise a young lady or a young man that's, looks at politics, look to see where it's at and say, you know what, I'm not going to get into that game. It's just, there's too much going on. There's too much character assassination.
Oh my gosh. It's just getting a little bit crazier, I think, with, I think about it myself. It is more daunting as things evolve, especially in the technology space. So I think one thing that you are concerned about is like social media and how easily everyone wants to attack you and throw you under the bus, and you wear everything, and then by the time you're trying to get your message out there, like that train has left the depot and you're like, wait, like you haven't even heard my side of it, or what you're basically speaking to is ill-informed. You don't know all of the facts behind different decision points and why things have to go a certain way, why certain projects have to happen. And so anyways, I would just advise that I think you really have to have the conviction that you want to make a positive change. And I think that you can't give up on, I know it's kind of cliche sometimes to say you want to be the change you want to see in the world. And you really have to believe that in your inner core, and that has to be the strength that pushes you through that. And you have to have good mentors that train you to not take everything personal, to develop thick skin. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's taken me, the first time I ran for office was 2010, and here we are in 2026. So there's been a lot of growing and a lot of slaps I've received. But, I think it's just part of like playing a sport or putting yourself out there in any other field. You have to kind of go out there, and sometimes you get these smackdowns and you learn from being knocked down, and you're like, geez, what did I miss? What didn't I do correctly? Or how can I be better prepared to address these situations? And I just think, you got to constantly put your armor on and kind of say, I'm a warrior trying to do good. And there's going to always be people who are going to say the opposite. But I think that the main thing here, the main message is believe in yourself and the value you can add, and the experience that every single person's experience is unique and can't be replicated. And so her experience and her passion is unparalleled. Like it doesn't exist. And so if she's willing to bring that, I just think it's a matter of talking to the right people who can basically become your mentors. Because I didn't have any political mentors at the beginning, and I feel that I would have benefited a lot had I had some people advising me on the sides, hey, this is kind of how this works. Hey, watch out for that landmine. Because it is that kind of space. It's about who's kind of communicating things to you, and how we all adapt and change and shift and avoid being pummeled, or sometimes you're doing things because you think they're right, but then the aftermath of doing what is right is sometimes very complicated, and you have to be okay with saying, I'm gonna assert my position, I feel confident in it, I'm gonna articulate why I feel this way, and can't always be with everyone 100% of the time. And that's what makes leadership hard, because you have to be in these spaces making decisions. And like I tell a lot of people in my family, because they say, how is this like elected life? And I said, it's not glamorous, it's not easy. You're always making people upset and at you, because when you say no to a project, you're making those people who didn't want it to happen happy, but you want the people who wanted to make it happen unhappy. And so you always have a mixed bag of people who hate it, people who love it. And I'm just trying to figure out what I think is in the best interest moving forward and into the future.
Yeah. Thank you. Great message to leave us with. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on,
for having me
Councilwoman.
on.
Yeah.